it was a very difficult change
Yeah,
to make,
it
to
was.
let go of BlushCat. How are we going to have BlushCat without BlushCat? Howdy, Meowers. My name is Jezzabelle. Welcome back to the BlushCat podcast, and you have probably noticed something a bit different about our channel.
Yes, hello everyone, and hello Jezebel. What's so different? I mean, you guys had to keep your eyes peeled. You had to be watching. If you're listening, you didn't notice anything. But if you're watching, or, I guess if you saw when you clicked on the video, what did they notice different?
BlushCat has a mascot.
Woo! Beep, 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 beep.
Meow.
Everyone, give a big warm welcome to our new mascot for BlushCat. I mean, it's a cat that looks like our cats. But up until now, for like the intro, the thumbnail art, we were using like a fan art kind of situation, like an homage to Dawn during STAN PENTAGON days. But we didn't have an actual mascot. So now we have like our own,
Like an official representative icon.
Yes, exactly. It's our own.
Right. And its name is BlushCat,
Of course.
because before we were calling the Dawn, fan art doodle BlushCat. We will explain why. Because in this episode, the Dawn of BlushCat is what we're calling it, because we're re-explaining the BlushCat channel.
Yes.
Kind of the origins of BlushCat. We're going to get into the Pentagon nicknames that we have. We've used them countless times in episodes. You might be confused, but we're going to re-explain them now and kind of let you have that insider information.
Yes. So in this episode, it's a little less about, the goings on of K-pop right now and more about the goings on of BlushCat.
Yes. And these are the visual changes that we talked about in our Becky episodes. And so, you might be wondering, when are the changes going to take place? We're rolling it out now. You're seeing the new icon. We do still have the Dawn fan art for our header. That might change at some point. Our intro as well. There might be a slight adjustment to it because we're not really sure how it's going to end up looking, so we might make some improvements to it at some point. But the cat icon is going to be the new thing from now on.
Yes, so I hope everybody likes it. We'll have to have, a kind farewell to the Dawn, representative image. Starting a new era now. And yeah, I mean, it's rough with that YouTube glow, so we might still be tweaking it because YouTube just likes to make everything look different than what you wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it's not. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it's YouTube's fault, kind of, I suppose.
So let's explain why we decided to make this change, shall we?
Absolutely. We shall. And I think, can I first acknowledge the Dawn of BlushCat titlement,
yes.
wording? Brilliant, and thank you, Dawn, for being Dawn, because it works perfectly.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the beginnings, the origin, how BlushCat came about and came to be.
Yes, and we will get to that, I guess now. It's kind of going to be all mixed together. It's not so many things that we're going to be talking about today connect to each other in too many different ways, so we can't organize it perfectly for you. So just stay tuned and we'll hopefully explain everything as best we can. So we changed to the image of the cat from the Dawn fan art because of, the main reason of it just felt a little wrong to be using the image of somebody else for our channel.
Right. Like BlushCat needed its own representative image or character. We sort of took the iconic moment and the iconic just the vibe and the feeling that we got from something, and we transform that into our cat character and like let that like live on without it specifically being like the person.
Yes. And the designs, as usual, courtesy of Devin. Give it up for Devin. Round of applause. Woo, woo, woo.
Thank you. Thank you. If you do not like them, you can keep it to yourself. Thank you. Thank you. But yes, so I said, we took an iconic moment, instance, aesthetic, all that. We boiled it down to make this character. But what is that iconic moment? What was this spark point?
It all sparked from Pentagon's performance of Shine, specifically on M Countdown, episode 569, the date, May 3rd, 2018.
Yes. And when I saw this performance, you must know, I did not know Pentagon. Like, I didn't know the people individually. So I was strangers to seeing this. Jezzabelle, you were, like, this was your first, like, Shine was your first song from Pentagon, right?
Right. So I was kind of, familiar with Dawn and familiar with Pentagon and Shine, and I had checked out like their music video for Shine because obviously that got super, super popular. So I ended up hearing about it, and I would watch their stage performances. And one day when I was watching this specific M Countdown performance, Devin happened to see it, and as she does, she comes up with some nicknames for the members. And so Dawn was eventually nicknamed BlushCat.
Yes, and that was the dawn of BlushCat in
Yes.
both senses. But it really became the moment that we were like, that wasn't the moment that we said we should be making a podcast, but that was like when we were thought, oh yeah, we should make a podcast. We were like, we should call it BlushCat.
Yeah.
Like, and we were thinking of this stylization of this performance with
Yes.
Dawn.
Right. And I always kind of thought, like, when you nicknamed him that, I was like, that sounds like something. Like, it sounds like it would be, like, a username for something. And so it kind of stuck with us. And so Dawn earned the nickname BlushCat, and the other members of Pentagon did earn nicknames as well. But why don't we talk about the two other very relevant ones that we still use today? And like I said earlier, in many of the episodes we still use them. So you can explain the origin of those nicknames.
Yes, Meowers, now is your moment. If this whole time you've been like, I don't know, like, why do they call these people these names? And we always say, oh, maybe we'll explain it one day, but like, oh, use context clues. Oh, we've explained it before, like who it is. But you didn't have the full story. Now you're going to get the full story. Buckle up.
Yes, buckle up because it's a lot and it's kind of weird.
We're talking about BlushCat, Tony, and Roni. I don't call Dawn BlushCat anymore, but we definitely say Tony and Roni all the time. Okay, I'm going to start with BlushCat, but also kind of like a little side, like, sub-nickname for Dawn. So I like to... Okay, well, first let's start with BlushCat. The iconic, the thing that everyone's hearing all this time. You want to know the story. If you look at that performance of Shine, go and take a gander.
You can specifically look at about 5 seconds in.
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, just pause it there and tell me that's not BlushCat. Okay. Tell me that is not like a cat that rubbed their face in some blush. Like it
is. I can't deny it. I'm not denying it. It definitely is a cat that rubbed its face in blush.
It's got those vibes. It's just totally got those vibes. And so I was like, that's BlushCat. And that now let me think of the other people, because when I first, like, I was so new to K-pop at this point. And so I would watch the performances and I would just like come up with sort of stories to like just have something to talk about, to help me to remember the people, things like that. There's some iconic nicknames from some other groups too. But basically, yeah, like I created a bit of a backstory. And so with Dawn, one, he was BlushCat, but two, he was also the ringer.
Yes, yes.
So the ringer is a term that I learned from dance moms. And basically it was a person, like when they would have their dance troupe and then they would bring someone in that wasn't regularly a part of their dance troupe just for a specific performance. And they were sort of like the specialty, like specialized for that performance. Like, oh yes, we'll bring this person in. They're the ringer. So that's what I thought of Dawn being when I watched the Shine performances. I was like, he's the ringer. You know, they brought him in to just fully embody this Shine BlushCat, you know, performance. I just felt this iconicness, you know, and I thought like he must be like specialized in this. Like that's just the vibe I got. So yes, he was the ringer and he was BlushCat.
Yes, and actually that specific moment at about 5 seconds in, you could probably recognize was our old, like the art was inspired by that very moment. So our new mascot icon channel art is heavily inspired still by that stylization of Dawn, that BlushCat moment. And so, you know, you worked in the little details. You added the daisy. And if you know Pentagon, you know the significance of daisies. So I love that. So it's still, like, we're still trying to keep the original, like you were saying, feeling and significance from that performance in our new icon.
Yes, absolutely. Like that essence, we wanted that essence to be there. I hope that it delivers for you guys.
Yeah.
And if you feel like, well, why is there not as much blush as I feel like, you know, BlushCat has in this new depiction? That's not my fault, okay? That's something, like we said, maybe we will be working to get better blush visuals, but for some reason the blush just keeps disappearing.
Yeah. Just know it was a very, like, it's a very difficult change to make, to let go of BlushCat. Like, because that performance, Dawn is BlushCat. And so it's like, well, how are we going to have BlushCat without BlushCat, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a little like, I really like the cat, and obviously we have the cats that we use for the podcast episode and like everything else. We've made this cat design already, so it's fitting and it all ties together now. But there was just something about the Dawn doodle, the art style that, you know, will be missed.
Yeah, it was definitely a difficult transition, but it's happened. So
yeah.
Okay, the other nicknames. So we have Tony and Roni. Now it's gonna get a little complicated here, guys, because I've got a whole backstory. Okay, I can't just be like, well, he was named Tony because he reminded me of someone named Tony. Like, no, that's not it. I built something here, okay? I built something.
Yes, and I actually do have a question.
For me?
For you, yes.
Okay.
Were the nicknames Tony and Roni still solely built off of this one performance of Shine? Or did those come from seeing more stage performances?
Oh no, it was this one performance.
Okay. Oh, well, definitely for Roni, yes. So
yeah.
So
this performance, okay, well, first let me say, so Tony is Hongsok and Roni is Usok.
Right.
Just to, you know, get that out of the way. And so basically when I saw Tony in this performance of Shine with his red jacket and whatnot, I just thought, okay, oh, and specifically at 34 seconds in is a good moment. I just thought that looks like the leader of the Warblers. Yeah. And if you don't know who the Warblers are, they are an a cappella group in the fictional show Glee. And so they basically, it's like prep, you know, prep school vibes, but very like debonair or something, like nice and classy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, he looks like the leader of the Warblers. He looks like he's, he looks like he's like I'm just going to keep repeating myself. He looks like he's got this vibe that like would be that, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Warblers. It could be a different a cappella group, but he had that vibe about him. So that was sort of, that was my thought. And so I named him Tony because I just thought that his name would be Tony. Like, it's like, oh, he's Tony, the leader of the Warblers. The real leader of the Warblers is not named Tony, but, I just thought it was fitting. It was fitting for the vibes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And there's actually a little bit of contention here, a little bit of confusion between Tony and Roni and who was named what first. Because I'm pretty positive it did switch at some point. Mm-hmm. But we're just going to go with he was named Tony, leader of the Warblers. Roni. Let's get into Roni. I thought that Roni, he's got a shorts look going on and he's very tall. But he's dressed, they're all dressed similarly. They all look like obviously that they're part of the same group because they are and they're dressed similarly. But he also was giving a bit of a Warblers vibe, a bit of an a cappella vibe. But in a, I'm here because I got in somehow vibe.
No offense.
Yeah, no, it was just his outfit was giving something along those lines. Mm. So I made up the backstory that he's Tony's older brother, and Tony wouldn't let him be in the group. He's like, no, this is my group, and I'm the leader. You can't be in this group, Roni. And so Roni was like, Mom, Tony won't let me be in his group. I sound like a crazy person, but
I warned everybody it's a little weird.
It was like, for the fun of it. Like, let me make up some crazy story right now. I wasn't like, this is what's happening.
Right.
But yeah, so I was like, he looks like he is that other dude's brother, but he wanted to be in the group, but his brother was obviously like, no, you're not being in the group. So he went and had his mom force his brother to let him in the group. Long story short. And so I wanted them to have, we thought it would be a good idea for them to have matching names, but also I think like when the name Tony came up, this is where it's confusing because I don't actually know if I named Tony first or if I named Roni Tony. But I named someone Tony. And then you came up with the idea of Roni. Why is that?
Right. This is a little bit weird, obscure maybe as well.
Yeah.
But the name Roni had been in my mind, sort of, because of the game PUBG. You might pronounce it PUBG. But there is a truck in that game, and I had been playing that game, and I first stumbled upon that truck, and I saw the back, and it says Roni, R-O-N-Y. You might pronounce it Ronnie. I think that it's better to pronounce it Roni. And I'm like, I don't know what this vehicle is. I've never seen it before, but I think it's really funny that it says that on the back. So that name was in my brain, and I was like, hey, why not Roni?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I was like, gold, absolutely. Because I think for one of them, I suggested Tony, and then you were like, yeah, no, not Tony, Roni. Name him Roni. And I was like, oh my God, that's genius. So the leader, he should be named Tony, and then the other boy should be named Roni. And for some reason, those two names just really stuck with us.
Yeah.
And we just see them as those names, and just like Hongsok just looks like a Tony, and Musok just looks like a Roni.
He is so Roni. Like, that one for me is probably out of any nickname that you have given anybody, or like, that we've given anybody, that's probably like the one that sticks the most for me, because he just looks so Roni. And so I really hope that they're not like offended by the fact that we call them by a nickname I really hope that it's like, because it was just for fun. You heard how obscure and random the stories, like in origin of the nicknames are. So
Yeah, it's really just, it was like just a fun, crazy thing. It's not like they are reminding us of someone else, so we're calling them like a name that someone else already owns. You know, like in our mind, these names didn't really belong to anybody.
yeah.
And I think that's what helps with Roni so much, is like I've never heard that being used as a name before. Like there was the truck in PUBG and like that was it. Like I don't even, I think some people do have that as a name, but I've never heard of anyone with it. So, and it's like, it's so to the point that like sometimes we will be thinking like to call him Roni in like we call him Roni in the podcast, but also we've jokingly been like, oh my god, yeah, like what if you like, you know, tweeted out something and you said Roni, like like no one would know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So there is actually another variation of Roni's nickname, and it's still based on that M Countdown performance of Shine. So you can actually see some good visual representation at about 1 minute and 36 seconds or at about 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yes, you gotta have those, you know, have that pause button ready, or just have your eyes peeled. It's a great one. Apricot Roni. Now, if you're already looking at the picture, maybe you understand. Also, I'm personally more of an apricot person myself. You know, like if I were to say the word, I would say apricot, but it's not apricot Roni.
It's apricot. Yeah, like it just has to be apricot, okay?
Yeah. So apricot Roni, because he's also sporting some blush, and on first glance, when you're watching the whole stage, you maybe don't notice. But then if you like, you know, really see his face, you're like, oh my God, he's got some apricot blush on. It's apricot Roni. Like,
yeah.
It was another moment.
It was another moment because, like, you know, Dawn, his blush look that made him become BlushCat, he became BlushCat because it was such an iconic and different look. We had never seen anybody do blush like this before. It was like
standout trendsetter.
Yes. And so that became a thing, BlushCat. Then we see Roni, and he has a blush look too. And, you know, it's not as severe, but it's apricot. And how many times do you see people with apricot blush that is just like, it was pretty intense.
And especially in 2018. You guys got to remember, it's 2018.
Yeah.
It looked like Style Savvy. If you've ever played the game Style Savvy, it looked like, because you could pick any color out of your makeup colors for blush, it looked like if you were to put like an orange colored blush on your character in Style Savvy, which whenever I would play that game, I would use the pink blushes and I'd be like, why would I ever use any of these other color blushes?
Yes, but also very iconic.
Definitely.
Yeah. So those were all the nicknames that are still relevant ones that we use and we use often on the podcast today. But why don't we just maybe mention why we decided to do a K-pop podcast, or like sort of our first like beginnings with K-pop, just in case people want to know.
Yeah, I mean, so like my origin groups were like BTS, Pentagon, a little bit of Monsta X in here,
a little bit of EXO,
a little bit of Blackpink,
A-Pink,
and
me, yeah.
Like in the early stages, like those were the groups that I kind of knew a little bit about and that I listened to, but I didn't have anything near the extensive knowledge that I have now. But we would watch K-pop, we would talk about it, and it just kind of seemed like, you know, we enjoyed talking about it, and I feel like we've got some nice things to say. We've got some funny things to say, you know, some funny nicknames and stuff, to side stories to bring up. So just seemed kind of like a good idea to just record it, you know?
Yeah. And so, like, we already said, we knew BlushCat would probably be a fitting name for some sort of, I don't know, user channel anything. I don't know. It's
Something
just,
should be called BlushCat.
yeah. So what better than the BlushCat podcast, right? Support us, subscribe, like, comment.
Thank you.
So like I kind of found out about K-pop from BTS in 2017. They were getting a little bit more relevant globally, and a lot more relevant globally. And so I found out about them. They were the first group that I liked in K-pop. But then, as I said earlier, Pentagon Shine got really popular. Loved that. But I kind of actually started standing Pentagon around like Naughty Boy era. Yeah. So, and of course, Dawn was no longer in Pentagon for that era. So it was a little bit like of, a time. But I was still really enjoying Naughty Boy. And like from then, obviously, we developed the Stan Pentagon brand. Stan Pentagon, yeah. Stan Pentagon. And we still think you should Stan Pentagon.
Stan Pentagon.
But I mean, like, Pentagon has had a lot more changes since then, and they have, like, not been as active. So you might be thinking, well, why does Pentagon seem to have such relevancy to this BlushCat channel if they don't really talk about Pentagon that much? But, we still love Pentagon. We obviously, like, we miss
Pentagon.
We miss Pentagon. You've now heard the history of, like, the channel, so you probably know, okay, so it was significant. Like, this is, like, there's a lot of lore and, like, related stuff that ties in. So we wanted to keep that. It's just, we'd love to talk about Pentagon. Like, we try to talk about, we talked about Roni's solo stuff. We talked about Hui's solo stuff. We try to talk about them when we get a good chance to. But, maybe one day, if they ever have a comeback as Pentagon, we'll have a big celebration and cover just Pentagon's comeback the entire episode.
You'll know it. If they have a comeback, you'll know it.
Yeah. So that's like, Pentagon's still very relevant, and that's like why BlushCat always says Stan Pentagon, because we want to support them. We want to show our appreciation for our roots.
Yes, they're like the foundation of BlushCat.
Yeah. And we obviously think that you should support them because they're a great group and they deserve more. So, yeah, but BTS, EXO, like the groups you were saying, like they were the other big groups back in the day when we were first getting into K-pop. So, we do have like nicknames for like a lot of the people in those groups. Most of them aren't really relevant anymore. Some of the EXO ones still stuck. But, like, other than that, like, we just feel like those groups aren't even, like, as relevant to us anymore. Like, we still, we talked about EXO's comeback that they had back when they had one last year. But they're not, the groups that we know as much information about anymore. But back when we started the channel, we knew the most about those groups. And so since we know so much more about K-pop now, it's like we should maybe just start the podcast again. So that's why, like, last year we kind of started it back up.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Our original, like, origin point was so heavily skewed towards just a few groups, and like we even would, like, we mentioned groups that we now know a lot about. It just seemed like if people were to start watching BlushCat from episode 1 and listening from episode 1, it would be confusing almost. They would be like, these hosts like these groups and focus on these groups and don't know these other groups, when in reality there's been such a big shift, like, of knowledge gain from us, that like we wanted to just start fresh with like a new knowledge base being expected of us, I guess.
Yeah, the difference is kind of unbelievable. Like, compared to, like, how we used to do the episodes, how, like, we used to, talk about the groups that we knew versus the ones that we didn't know. And, like you're saying, like, our knowledge is just so different. But there is still a slight possibility. Maybe someday we will revisit the older episodes. We're not sure though. We said that back when we, like restarted that. Well, we did content before and maybe there's a chance that we'll bring it back, but it's been 60 episodes and we haven't brought it back. And so it's like we're still kind of just saying maybe.
Yes, it's still like locked in the vault, could someday be released sort of content. Like we have thought about it and thought about ways that we could do that, but we've never concretely decided on anything yet. And it would be, it'd be something to maybe just think could happen at some point, but I wouldn't be like, expecting it.
Right. And it would probably look like, just some highlights from the older episodes with like new commentary added to them just to provide more context.
Context is
as
important
to what we're saying and kind of like apologizing a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
We said some spicy things back then that now it's like we can laugh at. It's like, oh, that's funny that we thought that.
Yeah. But like it would probably also just be exclusive to YouTube so that we could add maybe like some on-screen text or something. I don't know, but maybe. So don't like wait around for it.
Yeah, but so if you're not listening on YouTube already and you're not following, go on over there because yeah, like it's also the audio quality of the older clips.
Oh yes,
is not really going to be like prioritized for good listening. So to put it on podcasting platforms is a bit like, your ears are gonna bleed.
Yeah, pretty much. We had some bad audio back then.
There was a whole saga.
We were trying though.
We were. So yeah, make sure you're following us over on YouTube and checking in if you are interested in possibly knowing when that is happening. Like, I mean, you would know when it's happening. I mean, it's possibly happening.
Yes, possibly. So that's kind of it, I guess, right? We don't really have anything else that we feel like we need to sort of re-explain at the moment.
Just STAN Pentagon, I guess.
Just STAN Pentagon. At the end of the day, STAN Pentagon.
STAN Pentagon, understand the dawn of BlushCat as well as the dawn of BlushCat in both senses of the phrase. And hopefully you enjoy our new mascot.
Yes. And if you do like our new icon, you can show your support by liking the video on YouTube and leave us a comment to let us know what you think. While you're on YouTube, if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do that and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of our content. If you're listening on Spotify but haven't followed the podcast or our official profile, go ahead and do that. And please rate us positively if you enjoyed. We will be returning with regular K-pop content soon. Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed hearing this lore and backstory origin of BlushCat.
Remember to stay meowing, please, and of course, thank you.
See you guys in the next one.
This has been Jezzabelle
and me. Bye.
Meow, 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 meow,